Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, this comes from ex-Scientologist message board, dated February 4th, 2008. And again, cover-up of child abuse in Scientology. It's why I know I'm a little harsh, but you really do have to think about some of the elderly people that you or other people are feeling tremendously sorry for. And it is, I mean, I'm the most caring person around, but a lot of the elderly people in Scientology have been abusing, condoning, or complicit in the abuse of children. So, you know, I would say at the end of the day, you have to do the moral and ethical thing. So I don't like to see elderly people suffering. But if you really research this deeply, like I have, and I have a lot more to learn. Sometimes I wished I wouldn't have learned some of the things I did, but, you know, those children weren't abused on their own volition. They were abused by adults. And if the adults were not directly abusing them, they're just handing them over. Like, I'll use Nathan Rich as an example. His mother just handed him over and sent him over to the lower ranch. You know, sometimes you can minimize what was done, but I can't. So, anyways, guys. Okay. Alonzo states, let me see if this site is still open. I keep getting these messages. I believe that Scientology infiltrated this site. And sometimes these sites are just, they're no longer up. Tan's Staffy, Crusader, dated February. I'm not going to put all the dates because it's in 2008. Very serious allegations. Yeah, they sure are. This quote particularly caught my attention. The Church of Scientology, an implacable foe of psychiatry, you know, started by one of the craziest persons on earth, took an unexpected stance toward recently passed legislation. You know, we got to be careful because some of this is Scientology trying to infiltrate, so I'll read the rest. In Texas, prohibiting psychotherapists from engaging in S with current or former patients. That should be true for everywhere. I got my own story. According to John Bush, executive director of the Texas Society of Psychiatric Physicians, I don't know, what does this have to do with the children? I'm just going to skip it, you guys. It doesn't, let's stay on topic here. The church, Kathy states, Kathy, I'm out. The church could easily be bustled for violation of child labor laws. Yes, they could, LAPD. That too is considered child abuse. Basically, any kid in the Sea Org under 18 and not emancipated. And also, too, you guys heard something else I'd read, how one of the manipulative Scientologist adults was trying to get a child of a Sea Org member, a child Scientologist, to emancipate themselves. Remember that? is not allowed to work more than 4 to 6 hours per day, and they aren't allowed to work after a certain hour. There are so many kids in the Sea Org. Yeah, still are. All against the law, but, law. Or born into the church is complete violation. Yeah, what's her name over there in Los Angeles? Karen Bass. You guys know. They doing those weird ditty parties with them? Not the children, with some of these government officials. Hello. So if Anonymous is reading this, call Child Services in LA County. Yeah, like LA County doesn't know. And get the church busted on that. There was, back in the early 2000s at least, 100 or more minors in the Sea Org. Yeah, how about that? I think Rinder was still in then, wasn't he? Of course, Rinder was a Sea Org member as well, as a child. Just at the PAC base, or that's how it looked. Wasn't the PAC base where Mark Headley and his wife escaped? I think. Okay. Wrong place, right time. TAN staff said the Church of Scientology asked for a waiver. Isn't it interesting how they don't like WOGs or WOG laws, but they sure know how to use the legal system, don't they? Asked for a waiver because the bill would also apply to clergy. Clergy. We're still pretending, right? Who do psychological counseling. That's called auditing, that people pay a lot of money for. From Scientology receives tax exemption. Psychiatric Times, dated 12/93. I don't know what the 11's for. Puke, someone said. Sandy Girl. This topic was my own personal wake-up call. I used to be disgusted with the staff. Listen to this, you guys. This is what I'm talking about. I would venture to say a lot of the staff that she's talking about are adults. But again, we know that children work as staff members too. LAPD is totally fine with all that. I used to be disgusted with the staff who were in the org 7 days a week. Okay, so these were adults she's talking about. This is what Serge talks about. And either dumped their kids on someone or brought them in with them daily. This is the children. Dirty and neglected doesn't begin to describe them. Of course, they usually went with the SIO, think public schools equal drugging and suppression. I don't want to say too much to protect some family that is in Sea Org, but I know firsthand that kids are targeted by Sea Org recruiters. By Sea Org recruiters. Adults. Or at best, they're 16 or 17-year-old teenagers that are recruiters. See how the abuse continues? By Sea Org recruiters at young ages and brought in as young as 13. As young as 13. The parents sign over rights to their kids, to guardians. Talked about this as well. These kids are basically on their own at this point. Also, go look into how many of those guardians essayed them. It happens. Since the parents do not meet the guardians beforehand, Wow, you guys, I didn't know that. Does this sound like a boundary violation? Oh, just sign your kids over. No big deal. You know that's one of the first things they get them to do. Meet the guardians beforehand. They're at their mercy as most comm goes through them. Comm is communication. It's a blackmail, you guys. They're using children as blackmail. Do you guys see? Same with, I mean, not exactly the same, but if you'll see some similarities with the Diddy stuff, because the Diddy stuff goes on everywhere. It's not just Diddy. It's always about the blackmail. Anytime you read a news story from the mass media stating that someone's mentally unstable or they cheated on their wife, that really doesn't stand for much anyways anymore, does it? But it's always to control. That's it. And now I found out that Kanye West is one of them too, so I'm not surprised. They're all R-ing people. And that's on public record now, so trying to visit them can be difficult as the kids must CSW for the time off. That's some type of... Jenna Miscavige talked about that in her book. They have to put in... It's really stringent what type of requests they have to put in to get time off. And then everyone in their, like where they're staffed, or if they're, even when we're in the cadet org, everyone has to sign off on it. And then oftentimes, I think SP Chef also explained, you would have to have someone to take your place as well. Sound like a workplace? A workplace that sounds like, or claims that they're a church that works children. As the kids must CSW or for the time off. If you are lucky, you can see them for one day. That wasn't worded right, but we understand what they're saying. The scary part begins if the child is unhappy there. All of them are. I can assure you, every child in the Sea Org, or these cadet orgs, the Delphi Academies, what's the other one? Applied Scholastics. Every single one of those children are unhappy. But the children don't matter, do they? Is this abuse? These underage children are signed over for 1 billion years, which is also illegal, but, laws. Do they really understand what this means? No. Children can't consent. No home, job, sports, hobbies, school, college, careers. Can someone make this decision at 14 or 15? Are they even in a position to make a choice? Who they turn to if they want to go home? What kind of parent signs over their kids? Yeah, Scientology parents. What kind of parents sign over their children? Inquiring MF minds want to know. This is what is asked of a loyal Sciento. I have so much more to say about this sickening side of the church. Can't even see Surrey living like this. Oh, Surrey to never have to deal with any of this. Not for the rich people. And her mom kept her out of it, thank goodness. The Oracle. Wait a minute, you guys. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm going in the right direction. Because if I wasn't, that would be really weird. From when I first got in at 16, from when I first got in at 16. Let's see, when you're 16, there's a lot of laws made that to really keep track of you working. In various states, it's different. Some people are trying to annihilate those laws as well, because we live in a sick world. What else can't you do? You're just able to drive, which I'll bet they don't like a lot of the Scientology children to drive. And Jenna talked about that. You don't have a lot of money anyways. And the majority of the Sea Org, especially the children's Sea Org, there's no money. Got in at 16, all the way until the time I left. Saw children ignored and handled like garbage. Isn't it funny how I had to dig this up on a blog? Why aren't these Scientology parents, these ex-Scientology parents, speaking out? Could it be your perpetrators? I babysat for staff and was always unwilling to give the child back. That's sad. Sometimes they were left with me for days, and I had to cancel my own work. S abuse, anyone? I'm not saying she did that. It's not room for more abuse. I mean, you've got the S abuse, you've got the neglect, physical abuse like Wally Hanks like to do. They just hand their kids over. I was also called and asked to do emergency babysitting for certain public who were special in some way and needed to come in that moment for a session and didn't have a babysitter. So a lot of those people you see at Blue Building, it's probably the same stuff going on. Isn't that wonderful? Imagine that the LAPD was okay taking that money out in the open. Not even hidden in plain sight, it's just in plain sight. But it's not just in Scientology you find irresponsible parents. That's true, but we're not going to minimize it. Let's stay on topic. I've had kids dumped on me for the summer, starting at age 12. This is where, like, the S abuse starts, when you just hand your children over like that. And I had to start working at a summer nanny, as a summer nanny, when I was 8. How many laws were broken there, LAPD? Or maybe you guys don't. Maybe you guys don't read the laws. I guess as long as money's exchanged, the laws don't apply, huh? Children can be nannies at 8 years old. Or like SP Chef, who was in the UK. He was a chef at 9 years old. Well, at least I know he was working in the kitchen at 9. And then eventually he became the chef at 12 or 13, something like that. All illegal. But laws. I have magnets here for people's refrigerators with my name and phone on it because people leave their kids off here and then forget to pick them up sometimes until midnight. I dated 2 guys. One was not a Scientologist, that were divorced with children. They each had 2 sons with the ex-wife. Both of the ex-wives dropped the kids off with me and never came back. Wow. 2 of those boys still call me their stepmother. Do you guys see the parentification here of a child? I wasn't even married to the fathers. One of them joined staff. I guess so figured had more important things to do. See, these are the people a lot of people want to protect. There are some of them I don't want to help. But for anyone who's got any redemption left, or kindness in their heart. Those are the Scientologists I do want to save. Or help, rather. It's just a shock when you see it coming from a Scientologist. Because treason is hat dump. I don't know what hat dump is. There is a sect check for children, but not for parents. Children don't fit in on anyone's stats. They don't buy service. They can sell them, though. They don't produce student points or WDAH. They are viewed as a liability to justify the treason. Sandy Girl. I might not be reading this whole one because just a question, seriously. I mean, maybe they're like not a Scientologist and they just don't get it. Any news on how the kids are treated now? Obviously, it's still going on. Well, I'll read it. I'm really curious if you think that kids are still treated the same as when you went in at 16. Of course, why would it have changed? LAPD. How were you recruited? How long was your day? Do you know of any kids in there now and how they are treated? So that's kind of a dumb question. What happens to a kid if he wants to go home? I have some pretty good reasons why I need to know these things, but I feel like I can't say too much because I'm the only one in my family who is completely out. I don't want to cause any trouble for the kids in my family who are in and uplines. Not my kids, by the way. I'd rather cut off my right arm. Okay, so she was an ex-Scientologist. Terrell Park is a sponsor, whatever that means. Sandy Girl said, this topic was my own personal wake-up call. I used to be disgusted with the staff. Okay, I already read that one, so. Okay, I already read this. So somebody responded. Something you have to realize is that if any parent objects to someone trying to recruit their kid, they may get into very serious trouble with ethics. See how it's built in? But all the lawmakers and the government officials, FBI, Department of Justice, Child Protective Services, Board of Education, nobody knows what's going on with the kids, right? They can see those children going in and out of the orgs. They know what's going on. Others here may be able to tell you more. The Oracle, that's a cool name. So she's responding to the question from Sandy Girl about, do you think the kids are still treated the same? Every kid is different. Every time is different. What happens is different from, what is this about? As far as I know, the kids born there or brought there, all grown up, and children have been outlawed in that group since the late 80s. Does this sound like a Scientologist to you? If a woman gets pregnant, she is sent to get an abortion. If she refuses, she is kicked out on the street. $500. Oh, like Serge Oblensky when he was what? How old was Serge Oblensky when he got kicked out of the Scientology and his mom made sure he had a little apartment and had some disability, and then he became homeless? It's a little different for a child, isn't it? That money is a new thing, but I guess it could get someone to a homeless shelter or back to their family. Not now, it wouldn't. All that money they have. When Family Time was canceled, Mindy Alexander, a class 12, complained and was told to do lower conditions. See that? lower conditions when you want to spend time with your family. You guys don't see the Hubbard and Aleister Crowley connection here? Hello? Her 15-year-old daughter was IJC at the time. I don't know what that is. And when she went to her daughter to set it right, her daughter just looked at her and said, "There's nothing I can do." I don't know what the IJC is. Justice or something? I don't know. There were many people recruited in with the understanding they would have some time each day to see their kids. That's the bait, you guys. That promise was revoked, and anyone who protested was hit with ethics. Amazing how much I can find out in 5 minutes, but the LAPD doesn't know anything about this, do they? Suppose they didn't know about Diddy either, did they? But I mean, I guess probably one and only time I'll defend LAPD. LAPD was not going to do anything with Diddy. You guys know, and I don't too. Not unless someone wanted to sacrifice Diddy. Let's face it, you have to be somewhere near masochism to live with that crap, all of it. And masochism is close to sadism. So is misogyny. Even on the awareness characteristics chart. That's why you see so much of it about in the Sea Org. It might as well be an underground Sand M Club, whatever that is. Running can't-haves on the 2D is all part of the sadomasochism anthem. Maybe Sandy M was not a nice person, maybe. Okay. Kathy replies, when my daughter was in the Sea Org, listen to this. Age 15, I couldn't reach her for about a week. I was finally informed that she was in isolation due to an illness. Or you never know, she could have been getting assayed by a grown-ass man. Because you know they're into it over there. Sharp knife. I contacted the person in charge of staff that are sick. Forget the post title. Anyway, I quizzed him about what they, the church, were doing for her. I basically got that they were taking care of her. That's when you pull a Natalie Webster on them. You know, Natalie wasn't playing around. One night by chance, I called the area and she was walking by. So I got to talk to her. She had strep throat and they were only serving her the food from the mess. That comes from stress as well. She was able to meet me in the parking lot. She let me know how miserable she was. She asked that I get her food and beverages from the canteen so she could eat. So the food they were giving her was crap. It's also called neglect. I contacted the person in charge again and threatened that if my child was not seen by a doctor and was not better in 2 days, that I would remove her and return her when she was well. I went by in a couple days and she had just gotten back from the doctor and had antibiotics. Well, that's good. I had treated my daughter previously for strep throat with B1 and vitamin C, and she had gotten well in 2 to 3 days. My daughter was sick for 2 weeks while in the Sea Org. She was routed out probably within a month of all this happening. I never once spoke to her guardian. You guys know I got a lot of feelings, but I'll behave. Division 6. Make sure I'm still recording. Okay. This is a real Achilles heel for the OSA FAG and RTC. They shouldn't be saying that word. FAG. There are laws requiring that professionals report suspected child abuse. Yeah, how about that, LAPD? Since it seems pretty widespread, it could blossom into a total PR disaster for the most ethical people on the planet. And then they've got a, let's see if I can get to it. It probably is closed. Yeah. It seems to be a touchy subject with the Alex FAG. Notice his quick dismissive replies in another thread. I'm going to talk to some lawyers, get an estimate of effort. Perhaps this is the post-February 10th lens we focus on, child sexual abuse in the Sea Org. Child sexual abuse in the Sea Org. Here is a page with some statistics. I'm not even going to try to get to the links anymore. Sandy girl, you've confirmed my worst fears. You've probably heard me complain in other posting about missions that come to the org to get it to ST, hill size, St. Hill size. The last one was the nail in the coffin for me. I knew this was not where I belonged, another story. We were getting 20 to 25 calls per day to do every imaginable activity for the church. One day, a Sea Org recruiter, you guys notice they never say the recruiters' names, called to ask the ages of my kids. Isn't that great? Same effect as a glass of ice water over the head. Couldn't stand it there, but I would die before someone treated my children as I was being treated. That's a good mom. Unfortunately, I don't have family members who are strong, or who are as strong. Be a kiddo. Approximately 95 or so, an issue came out. I believe by ED International, which stated that any Sea Org members getting pregnant would be com-ev'd and routed off staff. Even if they're SA'd? You guys also, if the young girl is SA'd, that could prove paternity as well. Just something to think about. It did not promote abortions, but it made people do it for the fear of com-ev. Wish I knew what that meant. Some punishment, because it's all they have in Scientology is punishments. Depressing place that you pay a lot of money to get punished for. It also stated in the same issue that no Sea Org members with children were to be recruited unless the child was at least 10 years of age and old enough to make their own educated decision about wanting to join the Sea Org in the future. Could it have been that the feds were pressing down on them? An aside of implementing this reference was that all the staff had to read this issue, and anyone upset by it or disagreeing was to be brought to ethics for handling. I think when I was 10, I had no idea the plans for my entire life, and I certainly did not understand the church cult of Scientology enough to make an educated decision about it. Alonzo. Okay, I wonder if we could get a copy of this issue for the World Wide Web. Yeah, not like anyone's going to do anything, is it? Anyone know anyone who would know anyone who get a copy? Sharon Stainsforth. I think when I was 10, I had no idea the plans for my entire life, and I certainly did not understand the church cult of Scientology enough to make an educated decision about it. Couldn't agree with you more, Bia. I know the only reason I agreed to sign a billion-year contract was to stay with my dad. So these kids seem to care more about the parents than the parents care about them. That's what it seems like. If I had not signed, I was told I had to leave. There's that isolation again. My dad was already a Sea Org member, So either I would have had to got the next plane back to England alone, or my dad would have had to accompany me and then left me and flown back again. Signing seemed the sensible option at the time. They forget that they're just children, It's so sad. That's why it was so hard, the very thing that I stayed for. To be with my dad ended being a total disaster. 10 years old is far too young to make decisions on religion. I have trouble making those kinds of decisions at 50. But of course I should have known what I was doing, having lived so many times before and being such a big Thetan in a little meat body. The trouble was I didn't know that then. Lots of laughs. Tamison. Interesting name. Alex responds to the post from Div 6 that said, "This is a real Achilles heel for the OSA FAGs and the RTC. There are laws requiring that professionals report suspected child abuse." Let's see, Alex. "It is a touchy issue with me. I was personally involved in a situation where a child was sexually abused." There you go. Because why not, right? Ard, actually, while I slept, this happened to her. Or him. I don't know if it was a man or a woman. Ard, actually, while I slept nearby. Memories of which I hadn't revisited for decades, until prompted by the accusations by Keith Henson's daughter. Well, prior to any contact with Scientology, I wrote a bit about it on ARS recently. I talked to lawyers on a regular basis and once was on a path to become one myself. Realistically, the most powerful use of information of S abuse is in the media, not the mass media, not the courts. Just keep it simple, true, and well-timed. You don't need a steamroller to kill an ant, but you can kill an elephant with a 1/4 ounce of lead. Alex. You guys know I love animals. I don't go for statements like that. But I understand what they were saying. Sandy Girl. I actually feel sick. Bea, when I read your story, or I'm Out talks about her daughter, I feel sick. It seems that so many Sciento kids, in or out of the SO, are very alone. It's amazing how so many of the ex-Scientology parents don't want to talk about it or take any accountability. Are very alone. It is a terrible thing for a child or young adult to have the weight of the church and their ridiculous threats hanging over them. I saw an ethics order against someone hanging on the wall in the org because they finally threw some SO recruiters out of their home who were going for their child. See, some of them do protect. I believe this sick practice will be the one to expose everything else. Look at Jenna. That's what I've been telling you guys. In the end, she chose her own parents and her own life over the church. What kinds of religion requires a choice? Yeah, parents. What choice does it make you choose, parents? Dull Old Fart. That's a funny name. Okay, Alonzo said he's talking about if they could get a copy of that policy or a flag order. It is flag order 3905. There is a partial quote available via Google Groups. Paul. Colleen K. Peltoma. She's responding to Sandy Girl. Yes, I got a call late one night from LA asking about my daughter. Fortunately, she has never been interested in Scientology. Good. Bea Kiddo said, reminds me of the lifetime I spent as a Catholic nun. The unwanted baby bodies were buried or tucked behind the stone walls. But you guys can't tell me Satanism doesn't exist? Okay. Okay, the continuation of cover-up of child abuse in Scientology. Here's Mike Gormaz's page about coerced abortians in the Sea Org. None of these links seem to work, so. Web be webbing, though. So all this information's out there. I think one of the key moments, this is Gray Lensman, one of the key moments in my taking a real look at the church cult was when my daughter asked me about doing some basic courses. She was 15. I did one of those computations where you evaluate your responsibilities across the dynamics, and she came first. It's a good father. I found myself telling her key data she would need to negotiate that group with some possibility of staying sane. Things like don't borrow money for your bridge, despite what the reg says. It is off policy. No, I won't loan you money from an obligation as a parent to do your bridge. Don't ever fall into the trap of calling non-Scientologists WOGs. Oh, I appreciate that. I will always be there for you, and I will always communicate with you. Don't buy the bullshit about college not being important. Huh. He won points with me. She did not pursue it. I didn't say anything against the church as such. I just said these are the things you need to hold as stable data. I just find the organization utterly untrustworthy in the fullest sense of the word. My kid's mother and I never directed the kids to become part of it. Respect. We didn't direct them to the basic study manual or basic course. We both pushed them to do well in school and to think of their long-term futures. Help with demo kits and drawing it out, with making sure you understand the words. We pushed them to college. We gave them a choice. That's good. That alone should have been a wake-up call to me personally. Truth takes time. Yes, it does sometimes. Neo. Now, you guys know I like that name. Okay, so he's responding to the good dad post we just read. I wish I had someone like you around when I first looked into Dianetics. I had no idea of Scientology at that time. Your handling looks to me like a very sane approach, and the results speak for themselves. Goldenrod, nice name. So they're responding to, so if Anonymous is reading this, call Child Services. This is their response. I would hope one of us who is in LA area would make that call rather than leave it to Anon. I agree. People, some of them are so afraid that Scientology is going to track them back. It's really nice to see that power completely dissipating right now. Go moron. I don't know how to say that. Go moron. So, responding to what Sandy Girl said, about Bea, she read Bea's article about her daughter. Gomeron says, all of them, although most don't make it so explicit. Let me see what they're... Oh, what kind of religion requires a choice? Okay, that's what they were responding to. Okay, Uncle Sam. It is evil, it is evil, it is evil, it is evil, it is evil. Or is it just misunderstood? Nah, it is evil. Okay, you guys, that's it. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night. wherever you are. Peace.